If one day you meet yourself, prologue, the doppelganger, when death wears your face. Have you ever imagined one quiet afternoon you're walking down a deserted hallway and at the other end you see yourself walking toward you? Not a friend, not a mirror, but a perfect copy, identical in every detail, from your face to your gait, with hollow eyes devoid of any soul. Before you can speak, it vanishes. You think it's a hallucination. 3 days later, you're dead. No signs, no explanations, only one lingering question. Was it a warning, or death itself coming to greet you? Part 1. Ancient Myths. The Soulless Shadow. There are shadows that do not come from the absence of light. They come from somewhere deeper, where reason cannot reach. For thousands of years, humans have told tales of a being that wears their face but carries no soul. Ka, the Egyptian spiritual double. Ancient Egyptians believed every person had a Ka, a spiritual twin that lived alongside them from birth to death. Ka wasn't a regular soul. It could eat, drink, wander, almost like a real entity. But if it appeared while the person was still alive, it meant the Ka had left the body, signaling death was imminent. Doppelganger, a name not to be spoken at night. In 18th century Germany, the word doppelganger emerged meaning double walker. But this wasn't a twin. It was a shadow without a shadow, an image that left no reflection in the mirror, appearing only to signal one thing: your death is near. Ancient texts claimed those who saw their doppelganger either went mad, committed suicide, or died under mysterious circumstances within days. No one ever survived long enough to describe its face. Medieval Europe. The Devil's Shadow. In rural northern Europe, elders whispered of a nameless figure that wandered near the dying, appearing in their exact form, but standing silent and still like a corpse on its feet. Some children saw their parents cooking in the kitchen, only to find them outside the house seconds later. The fear didn't come from blood or gore. It came from this paralyzing question: if the person in the kitchen is real, then who is the one outside? If the one before me is me, then who am I? Asian beliefs. The fragmented soul. In ancient China, there was a concept called split soul, occurring when a person's spirit became unstable or overwhelmed. This would cause the essence to drift out of the body, forming a wandering shadow known as the ghost twin. In Japanese folklore, it's called a kiryo, a living soul that leaves the body out of hatred, jealousy, or grief to haunt others. But when one sees their own kiryo, it means the soul has already shattered. They would die quietly in their sleep, with no cause. Not a ghost, not a human. Every culture, unrelated by language or time, speaks of an entity that looks exactly like you, but it has no soul, no intent. Its sole purpose to announce death. Some saw it walking around the house, sitting on the bed, or staring back from a mirror while they themselves were in another room. Others claimed they saw themselves standing at their own funeral. We think we are unique, but if something else wears your face and is not you, is it here to replace you or to escort you to the other side? Part 2. Real Encounters. Documented Cases. No longer just myth, no longer just legend. The doppelganger has appeared in real life, and each time it shows itself, it brings a mysterious death. Abraham Lincoln, a glimpse before fate. One night in November 1860, after winning the U.S. presidential election, Abraham Lincoln told his wife something eerie. While gazing into a mirror in his bedroom, he saw two reflections of himself, one clear and sharp, the other faint and ghostly, yet undeniably his own. Mary Todd Lincoln, a believer in omens, was horrified. She claimed it meant Lincoln would be reelected, but wouldn't survive his second term. 5 years later, he was assassinated in a theater. Witnesses said he looked peaceful, as if he saw someone who wasn't quite him. Goethe, the writer who met his future self, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. The great German writer once recorded a chilling incident in his diary. While riding through a forest, he saw a man on horseback approaching. The man wore clothes Goethe had never owned, yet he looked exactly like Goethe. 8 years later, Goethe traveled the same path, now wearing the very clothes from that encounter. He realized he had seen his future self. Was it a vision, a time glitch? Goethe called it a living shadow, seen only by those approaching death. Catherine the Great, a royal order to kill herself. One night, guards at the Russian palace saw Empress Catherine the Great enter the royal throne room even though she was fast asleep in her private quarters. Panicked, they called in reinforcements. When Catherine herself arrived and opened the doors, she found someone sitting on the throne, wearing her crown herself. Without hesitation, she ordered the apparition to be shot. A few weeks later, Catherine died of a sudden stroke. No last words. No warning. Modern case: the doppelganger on camera. In 2014, at a hospital in the UK, security footage showed a nurse entering a patient's room, even though she was confirmed to be on another floor at the time. 20 minutes later, the patient died. When reviewing the footage, the nurse was stunned. It was me from the walk to the uniform, but it couldn't have been me. She quit her job within the week. The double was never seen again. They saw themselves. Then they died. Here are a few short but chilling reports from forums, medical archives, and anonymous posts. A man in Canada claimed I saw myself sitting on the couch, but I had just walked into the house. 2 days later, he died in a car crash. A girl in Japan told her roommate, "Last night I saw myself lying on the bed, but I wasn't in that position." She never woke up the next morning. An old woman in France in a nursing home said quietly, "I saw myself dressed in mourning clothes, attending my own funeral." She passed away in her sleep at exactly 3:33 a.m. But what if they're caught on camera? In some allegedly classified reports, researchers tried capturing doppelgangers on video. Results: footage became distorted, color shifted, or entirely blank. No clear image was ever retrieved. Some believe the doppelganger is not made of matter. It casts no reflection. It leaves no trace. It appears to one person only the one it's come for. As some deaths come slowly, others strike like lightning, but some tiptoe in like a shadow, and you are the first to see it. Part 3, Science or Supernatural, Decoding the Doppelganger. An unavoidable question arises. What exactly is the doppelganger? Is it a product of an exhausted mind, a fleeting hallucination during neural misfires, or is it a real entity from another dimension appearing only to forewarn What cannot be stopped in this part will explore both realms, the cold lens of science and the eerie echoes of the mystical. Neuroscience autoscopy, when the brain reflects the self. In neurology, there's a phenomenon known as autoscopy, meaning seeing oneself. It often occurs under conditions such as near-death experiences, trauma stroke, severe blood loss, oxygen deprivation to the brain, temporal lobe epilepsy. Patients report seeing themselves from an external perspective, as if the soul momentarily detached and observed from the outside. However, autoscopy usually happens during semi-conscious or altered mental states, often within hospital settings or under extreme stress. The doppelganger phenomenon, however, appears while fully awake in broad daylight at home, in mirrors or in crowds, and afterward comes death. Psychiatry, identity hallucination. Some mental health experts propose that doppelgangers may be a higher form of self-perception disorder. Identity hallucination. Dissociative identity disorder did. But if that's true, why do third-party witnesses also see the double? Why does security footage catch them or objects move in their presence? No one has a clear answer. Parallel universes, when two selves collide. One of the most controversial modern theories in physics is the multiverse theory, the idea of infinite parallel universes. Every choice you make spawns a new reality. Therefore, billions of versions of you exist across dimensions. But what if a spatial, temporal glitch occurred? What if another version of you accidentally crossed into your reality? What happens when two yous occupy the same point in space? Does reality collapse, or must one of you disappear to restore balance? Some theologians call this the fated collision, when time fractures and God must reclaim one soul to preserve the order of existence. Theological view is the doppelganger of fallen angel. In both Christianity and Islam, it's believed that every person has a guardian angel and possibly a dark mirror that shadows them. Some schools of thought argue that the appearance of a doppelganger means your guardian angel has left, replaced by the darkness, forming a reverse identity in your likeness, but stripped of everything that makes you you. In Kabbalah, this entity is known as Qlipoth, an empty shell of the soul wandering outside the realm of life. Ancient texts quoted by mystics say, when the soul is torn by despair, when faith shatters, when the self loses connection with the light, then a part of you goes astray, and that part returns to take you with it. Ask yourself, is it real, or are you ready to die? Here's an even more chilling idea. Maybe the doppelganger doesn't come to kill you. Maybe it comes because you're already dead inside. When your spirit has crumbled, when your life is a husk, when you no longer want to continue, the doppelganger appears as a mirror, reflecting what you've become. It didn't come to take your life. It came to remind you that you lost yourself long ago. Part 4. What would you do if you met yourself? This is no longer a myth, no longer folklore. It's a direct, unsettling question. If one day you see yourself, what will you do? Will you run? Will you freeze? Will you confront it? Because in that moment, the world holds its breath, and what stands before you is you, but not quite. Signs that the doppelganger is near. According to survivors and global records, There are common warning signs before a doppelganger appears. 1. Unconscious repetition. You do something, then minutes later do it again, feeling like you've already done it. A chilling sense of déjà vu, but stronger, more real. 2. A voice from an empty room. You hear your own voice calling your name from the stairs behind you or a closed room. But when you check, no one is there. 3. A flash of yourself. In a mirror, you glimpse someone behind you who looks exactly like you. Or someone says they just spoke to you when you were never there. The rare survivors and their strange choices. Very few survive after seeing their double. Those who did all acted against instinct. 1. They didn't run. They spoke. A man in Romania saw himself at the end of a hallway. Instead of fleeing, he walked toward the figure and said, "I'm not afraid. If you are me, speak." The doppelganger looked at him, nodded, then vanished. He lived for another 14 years and died peacefully in his sleep. 2. They performed shadow rites. A Catholic priest in Ireland encountered his own doppelganger in 1971. Rather than escape, he dropped to his knees and prayed aloud, invoking the true light of God to guide his fragmented soul. The figure dissolved into white smoke. He passed away 3 months later of natural causes. But he said, "I died clean." There was nothing left for the darkness to take. Protection, faith, or psychology. Depending on belief, people have tried various protective methods. Spiritual: never look into a mirror after 300 a.m. Never sleep in total darkness. Keep protective objects, close crosses, charms, sacred texts. Scientific: keep a dream journal. Monitor abnormal behavior or patterns. Seek mental health support if visions persist. But even then, no method is guaranteed, because those who've seen it all say it doesn't come to be banished. It isn't a ghost. It is a part of you, a part you can't outrun forever. Some survived, but were never themselves again. A 42-year-old woman in Denmark saw her double standing by the window at sunrise, staring silently at the street below. She said, "I didn't die, but from that day, I was no longer me." She continued to live, but she became cold, distant, as if part of her soul had been quietly replaced. Perhaps she escaped death, but not herself. And what would you do if you saw yourself? But the face no longer knew how to smile, and the eyes stared at you as if you were the intruder. Conclusion: death doesn't knock, it simply smiles. There's an old saying, death never knocks. It just stands there silent and looks at you through your own eyes. We often think death is an event, a crash, a disease, a sudden stop. But what if death isn't an act? What if it's a quiet substitution? No noise, no wound. What if death comes, wearing your face, living your life, until you're just a memory in your own story? It didn't kill you, you were already gone. When you stop feeling, when you live without faith, when the light inside dims from despair, loss, or emptiness. The doppelganger doesn't come to kill, it comes to replace. Like a burnt-out bulb, people don't throw away the lamp, they just replace the light. And just like that, you vanish. Have you ever seen yourself not in mirrors, not on video, but in those strange nights when you wake suddenly feeling someone is watching you from the foot of your bed? You feel a familiar chill, but you don't dare look. Maybe you've seen your doppelganger before. You just didn't recognize it, or you forgot, so you could keep living. But it's still there, waiting for the day your spirit dims again, and it will come take your place. Not folklore, just forgotten history. These stories of doppelgangers aren't confined to legends or superstitions. They're scattered across old libraries, glitched surveillance tapes, and diaries that no one ever publishes. Because we don't fear dying. We fear not being ourselves before we do. And if one day you're walking in a crowded street and someone brushes past you, a perfect copy of you, but unfamiliar, don't turn around, don't run, don't ask, because if you realize too soon, you're the one who must go. As if one day you see yourself staring at you from across the street, remember you have no time to ask why you only have one thing left to do: prepare. Live as if your soul is watching, and hope it hasn't already left.